Everyone, and welcome to the Balanced Bodies Blueprint. I am your host, Vinny Russo.
And I am your co-host, Dr. Erin Stansfield.
And we're shifting gears from all the conventional fitness narrative you hear on most fitness podcasts, as our main emphasis lies in preventative healthcare, adopting a holistic approach to nutrition, and challenging the traditional views on various fitness topics.
Our mission with this podcast is to provide you with the information you need to achieve optimal health.
And on today's episode, I am flying solo here because I really want to dive into an overlooked but extremely critical part of any successful fat loss journey, and it's called the primer phase. Some people call it the foundation phase because it's like you're setting a foundation. Other people will call it a reset phase because it's like you're trying to bring everything back to baseline, but for simplicity, let's stick with primer. Now, I've heard a few coaches actually talk about this phase. One being my friend and a very well-respected coach. His name is Brandon DeCruz. He has a great podcast called Chasing Clarity. If you haven't listened, go listen to it. But basically, his conversation with me and our post back and forth a little bit and comments that we leave on each other's Instagram posts, it inspired me to do this solo podcast just because I feel like it's really important, and we both kind of realize that a lot of people don't want to do it. So I feel like it's very important for us to express this to people. Anybody who has dieted before or is looking to diet or has been trying to diet and does not see results. So the way I want you to think of the primer phase is basically like a warm-up before the actual race, because it's essentially a diet to prepare you for the diet, right? So instead of jumping straight into cutting calories and trying to chase that fat loss right away, we want to discuss why taking time to prepare your body and to prepare your mind actually makes all the difference when we want to achieve optimized results. And the key word there is optimized results. Most people who rush into a strict diet, they actually end up hitting a bunch of plateaus or they burn out. And this is mainly because the body adapts and fights back if it's not primed for the change or for that change that you're seeking. So skipping this phase, I feel, is one of the biggest reasons why people pretty much fail before they even start the fat loss diet. So what we want to do is we want to use this primer phase before any fat loss phase, so we set a strong foundation that will keep your metabolism nice and healthy and keep your body and metabolism responsive over the long haul. So with this episode, I want to unpack the reason why this phase matters, what exactly to focus on with this phase, and then how to do it so your next diet attempt will actually work. Let's start off with talking about what is the primer phase. Well, the primer phase, like I said earlier, is essentially a warm-up period. And it can last a few weeks, or it can last a few months. It all depends on the individual. Things like dieting history or current eating habits now and how responsive your body is going to dictate how long this phase will actually last for. So there's no set number. It's going to be all dependent upon the individual. But this is really the phase or the period before you enter into a calorie deficit with the goal to get your body and your habits into the best possible state for fat loss to occur. So it's about prepping your body, it's about prepping your mind so that the fat loss is possible. Now, I need you to keep in mind that the primer phase is not a fat loss phase. This is a phase where you start eating better, not less, but you focus on real nutrient-rich foods. It's where you rebuild or even start movement habits like lifting weights or walking. And I'm not talking about like hitting some arbitrary step total like 10,000 steps per day. I'll get into that a little bit later. This is where you also focus on your sleep patterns and try to fix any issues there while also reducing stress. And then we also want to stabilize our weight so we know what being at maintenance calories should actually feel like. Need to say it again. This is not a phase where the goal is to lose weight. It's to get your body, it's to get your mindset and your internal environment operating at the best before introducing a calorie deficit. So you're prepping your engine before you hit that pedal to the metal, so to speak. Without this phase, I feel like you risk going into a fat loss with a body that's unprepared, meaning it's undernourished, it's overstressed, and it's metabolically suppressed, which will lead to inevitable frustration and you eventually quitting on your diet. So that was the premise of what the primer phase actually is. But why is it essential? Because you're probably sitting there like, why not just cut calories now and lose weight as fast as possible? The reality is, if your body isn't prepared, then a calorie deficit will only backfire. So here are the reasons for why I feel like the primer phase is essential before any dieting phase, no matter who you are. The first reason is going to be for metabolic recovery. Because when you've been eating too few calories for a while, your metabolism suppresses itself. Thus, you'll burn fewer calories at rest. And this is a protective mechanism called adaptive thermogenesis. Now, just as a side note, adaptive thermogenesis refers to specifically the decrease in energy expenditure, right? The calories burned that occurs in response to a calorie deficit or to weight loss or to environmental stress. It's the body's way of becoming more efficient and conserving energy when you have your food intake drop down. Metabolic adaptation is just like, because a lot of people say the two, metabolic adaptation is a broader term that includes all of the ways the body changes its metabolism in response to dieting, weight loss, or even overeating. So the metabolic adaptation includes an adaptive thermogenesis and other things like changes in hormone signaling, thyroid hormones and leptin, ghrelin, and changes in activity levels like fidgeting less, blinking slower, that type of stuff, and even changes in digestion. So when we talk about the two, adaptive thermogenesis is the calorie burning slowdown part of metabolic adaptation, and metabolic adaptation is just that overall package of changes your body makes to conserve energy. Anyway, so that was a little side note, but let's get back into this. If you start a diet in this state with this adaptive thermogenesis going on, you'll have to cut even more calories to see any progress, which, let's be honest here. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be miserable, and it's going to be very unsustainable. So in this primer phase, we work on boosting our metabolic rate. And we do this by gradually increasing calories to a healthy maintenance level. And we also try to do this by building muscle. What this will allow for is that we have more budget or more room to cut calories later when we go into that dieting phase without feeling like total garbage. So just think about, ask yourself, would you rather want to diet down from a place of 2,500 calories or from 1,700 calories? I'm pretty sure everyone's going to choose the 2,500 calories. The next thing is nutrient status. So those of us who have been on restrictive fad diets, or those of you who have been eating poorly, like lots of processed foods or not enough vitamins and minerals, we may have some nutrient deficiencies. So when you lack in certain key nutrients, that can impair various bodily functions. As an example, low iron or even low B vitamins feels like your energy zapped. If you have low calcium or low vitamin D, that can affect your bone health and even muscle function. And something like inadequate iodine can negatively impact your thyroid. So in a primer phase, the goal is to address these nutrient gaps by eating a nutrient-dense diet. So your body has all the building blocks it needs to optimally respond. So instead of starting a diet in a state of malnutrition, even if you are overweight, you could still be undernourished because of the micronutrient aspect. But instead of starting a diet there, you spend some time flooding your body with quality proteins, with healthy fats, with carbs that have a ton of fiber, and plenty of vitamins and minerals just to nourish your metabolism before you stress the body with a calorie deficit. The next aspect is stress and sleep. We know that dieting itself is a big stress on the body. So if you go into it with elevated stress levels, you're just stacking the deck against yourself. With the primer phase, what we want to do is we want to manage the stress and we want to focus on recovery before we even start to diet. So as you reduce stress and you improve your sleep quality during this primer, this is going to set you up to lose fat more easily when you actually hit that cut phase. And to be honest, you're going to feel better and you'll be way more focused during the diet phase if you've already dealt with the stress beforehand. So that's the key here. And then the last aspect is the mental aspect, where we know that dieting can be tough mentally. This is why a lot of people quit. You got to deal with cravings. You got to deal with social pressures, like your friends or families busting your balls or something. Staying consistent is really hard if you're not working with a coach for the accountability aspect. So if you dive in unprepared, it's going to be very easy to fall off at the first hurdle, especially if you're like one of those people that are all or nothing. With the primer phase, we want to ease into these healthier behaviors. You want to take your time to build these sustainable habits and routines, because that is what you're going to use to carry you through the difficult fat loss phase. You get to actually practice these healthy routines like meal planning or consistent exercise, mindful eating. You can work on your mindset, like reframing how you view the diet as like, instead of being like so restrictive, you could see it as like a positive lifestyle change rather than torture. So when the diet phase arrives, you're ready for this. And by practicing those healthy lifestyle changes before the actual calorie cut, those behaviors, they're going to feel natural during the diet, and they're going to feel awkward if you don't do it, right? So those were the four main aspects for why the primer phase is essential. But now let's talk about what makes up the primer phase, all right? Because the primer phase, you need to understand, it's not about perfection. It's not about flashy diets. It's about laying a strong foundation so your body and mind are ready for the fat loss phase later on. So here is the way that I like to break it down. Okay, the first thing is going to be, we want to feed your body, not starve it. This is literally the backbone to the primer phase. You're not cutting calories. You're feeding your body with the good stuff, and we're nourishing it. Okay, the idea here isn't to restrict, it's to nourish. So you're fixing any vitamin or mineral gaps that you might have been ignoring for a while. Like if you're low on iron, maybe it's time to toss in some more leafy greens, maybe some lean red meat. If you're low on vitamin D, get some sun, or maybe even talk to your doctor about, a vitamin D3 supplement. This is the time that you're going to work on balance with your diet. So it's not like, oh, we got to cut out carbs because they're bad, or we got to fear fats because it's going to make us fat. You have to understand, you're fueling up your metabolism, and you're making sure that every cell in your body is going to be ready to run efficiently, because you need that to respond optimally. Okay. You also have to understand you're going to probably be eating more during this period, especially if you've been chronically dieting or under eating for a while. And the reason why is because when you're well fed with nutrient dense foods, your body actually stops pretending like it's in famine, right? So later when you do your calorie cut, your body's not going to panic. It's going to respond because it knows it's being taken care of. It's being, all the nutrients are being provided to it. So when you think about this backbone, you want to stick with lean proteins like chicken, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt, things that keep you full and will support your muscle. You want to stick to the colorful fruits and veggies because these are going to pack the vitamins and minerals that your body needs. The whole grains and the legumes, which consist of the fiber to keep your energy nice and steady, even keep your gut happy. And then obviously the healthy fats like nuts, seeds, olive oil, fatty fish. They're going to help you with your overall energy levels as well, and with your hormone function. So that is the first area of the primer phase. The second area is to move with intention. So the primer is about building consistent, sustainable activity habits that you will actually be able to maintain when you do start dieting. And there's going to be two main parts here. Part A is going to be the daily movement, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This stuff is like walking more, maybe standing instead of sitting, taking the stairs, playing with your kids, that type of stuff. We want to aim for a daily step count goal that is realistic for you. If you can only get 4,000 steps per day, don't aim for that arbitrary 10,000 steps per day number. You want to just aim for a little bit more because it's more realistic. So something like 4,500 steps or 5,000 steps sounds a lot easier to do than 10,000, but it's still more than what you've previously been doing. So you're slowly increasing your daily movement there. And then part B is the strength and exercise part of it. So if you're not already strength training, The primer phase is going to be that perfect time to start. Me, by the end of the primer phase, I would love for you, if you're a newbie or you're just getting started, to have at least 3 sessions per week of resistance training. But that's not where you start. If you never did it before, add in 1, get a feel for it. Then maybe go to 2. If you feel real good, go to 3, right? It's not about destroying yourself. It's about making sure that we have a solid base underneath us. Now, if you've already been lifting, maybe this is a good time to spend refining your program, okay? You have to understand you're going to be eating a little bit more, so you could probably recover better. But that doesn't mean that you overdo it. That just means like maybe instead of doing like a deload week, maybe you do a deload month, where it's not so much training to failure. It's stopping, 3 or 4 reps in reserve, or keeping those 3 and 4 reps in reserve, the RIR. So that was the second area of the primer phase. The third area that I think is really important is trying to balance the system by basically focusing on stress and recovery. And we know that like stress is one of those things that will just sneak up on you. You got work deadlines, you got family issues or responsibilities, you got poor sleep, and over time that could sabotage any effort that you have towards fat loss, especially if you don't address it. So if your stress bucket is already overflowing, do you really think that adding a calorie deficit on top of that is a good idea? I don't, right? Adding a diet on top of that is just going to backfire on you. So this is going to be your chance to train your body to calm down. So when you do introduce a calorie deficit later and your body is calmed, you learned how to reduce that stress, you're not adding any fuel on to that raging fire of stress, right? You're not doing that because there is no raging fire. You've learned how to control it. So what do I recommend for the primer phase? Things like creating a daily stress busting, for lack of a better term, can't really think right now, ritual. This could be things like deep breathing. What I love to do is watching funny dog videos. Taking a walk in nature is one thing that I always tell my clients to do. But you want to find something that just genuinely helps you relax. Even if that is watching a Netflix show, so be it. If it helps you relax, I'm all for it. You also want to set limits on your work hours, right? Take real breaks during the day. And trust me, learn how to say no. Do not be afraid to say no to people, especially if it's going to drain your energy. And then the last thing is to prioritize time with your family and friends. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. And they're necessities to keep your mind and body in check during this time, which can help alleviate some of that stress. The second last area of the primer phase is your sleep, which I feel like is very overlooked and can literally be like a fat loss weapon. Because when you have poor sleep, that's going to throw off hormones. And it's throwing off the hormones that mainly control your hunger, so like your ghrelin and your leptin. And what you're going to do is you're going to find yourself way hungrier if you're sleep deprived, and you're probably not going to be able to have any discipline or willpower to withstand that because you have this poor sleep. So my thing is like, let's get some good sleep, right? Let's focus on some things to be able to get some good sleep and help our body repair and build muscle, which is going to be huge for fat loss, okay? So by the end of the primer phase, we want to wake up feeling refreshed, not hitting that 3 o'clock wall that most people hit. And the way we could do this is you obviously aim for 7 to 9 hours of solid sleep. Whether you get that or not, that's like the goal. That's the standard. But my thing is like, let's set a sleep routine. Let's get a consistent bedtime and a consistent wake up time so your body knows, even on the weekends. You don't throw up your sleep routine just because it's the weekend. Let's try to get something consistent in there and create a sleep-friendly environment. You want something cool, dark. You want it quiet. If you need to, maybe drink some herbal tea to help you wind down before you go to bed. But hopefully those things, like having that sleep routine and that environment, help support you get those 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And then the last aspect of the last area of the primer phase is the mental area, where it's almost like you have to set the tone for success here, because we know dieting is tough, which is why I have a career in helping people diet. It tests your resolve, it tests your habits, it tests your mindset. This is your chance in the primer phase to build the foundation. This phase isn't just to get your body ready, it's to get your mind ready too. And by the time you're done with this primer phase, it's not to be physically set. I mean, that's great, but you also want to be mentally stronger. You want to be more confident going into this, because that's going to make dieting so much easier to stick to. So the key with setting the tone for success and having that mental aspect of it is starting small with this primer phase. Maybe it's just prepping your lunch that you have to take with you. Maybe it's hitting your step count that you set by just adding a little bit more. Or maybe it's setting up a 10-minute night routine to get you ready for bed. Just doing those little things and getting consistent with that will build a little bit of momentum. Then you want to practice mindful eating. And you do this by noticing like what you're choosing to put in your mouth. You want to ask yourself if like what you're shoving down your throat right now is actually going to show your body love or not. And then listen to your body. Are you really hungry, or are you just bored? Are you stopping when you're satisfied, or are you eating because the plate's not empty? Start paying attention, become aware of your body, and notice what it's telling you. You also want to prepare and practice for common trip-ups. And I say trip-ups for lack of a better term here. And what I'm talking about is like social events or even stress eating, but mainly the social events. So you want to make sure you have a plan in place. You want to make sure that you're able to practice moderation when you do have this stuff. You want to try it often, right? You want to go out often so you learn how to navigate those situations. It's not about avoiding them. That's not how you make a dieting phase sustainable. That's not how you make eating healthy sustainable, by avoiding those situations. You need to subject yourself to it. Think about exposure therapy here. Get out there, go practice. But you have to practice a game plan. You can't just go there without a game plan. You have to tell yourself this is what you're going to do and see if it works. See if you enjoyed yourself. See if you mitigated the damage that could have accrued if you didn't follow a plan. Right? We don't want the dieting phase to decrease the quality of life. So you need to be able to go out and you need to know what to do without feeling guilty the next day. And the way you do that is through practice. And then finally here, with this mindset and setting the tone, you need to set realistic expectations. Okay, this is about building a sustainable plan, not trying to drop 20 pounds in 1 week. Remember, it might have taken you a very long time to get here, and now you expect to lose it within a few weeks. That's not realistic. Set realistic expectations so then you don't let yourself down. Now we're at the point where it's literally like, well, how long should this be? How do I know how long this primer phase should be? And the short answer is it really depends. There's no one size fits all timeline here. It really comes down to where you're starting from and how your body and habits are responding. So what you could do, or what I could do, is I could try to break down what to consider so you know what's really right for you. The big thing is going to be your personal dieting history. Like, what have you been doing up to now? If this is just like you're someone who's been dieting forever, like you're always chasing fat loss, you're always restricting calories, or you're bouncing back and forth between diets, your body has probably adapted to that and suppressed its metabolism a little bit. Because it's gotten so used to running on low fuel, it might even be pushing back when you try to lose some more fat. And that's where this whole term metabolic adaptation comes in. So if you're dealing with this, your primer phase is going to have to be a bit longer. Most coaches that know what they're doing would suggest 8 to 12 weeks, and that's about 2 to 3 months, just focusing on getting your body to feel safe again. And no one wants to hear that when you want to diet. You want to get your body in shape as quick as possible. No one wants to hear, I need 3 months before I can actually start losing body fat. Yeah, if you've been doing this to yourself, you have to understand this is something that you have to do. You have to, make sure you're eating enough. You have to make sure you're sleeping well. You have to make sure you're reducing your stress. Let your metabolism recover. And even with your hormones, and hunger hormones is what I'm mainly talking about here, and thyroid hormone, like let them sort of rebalance, man. You got to think of it as a long, deep breath for your body to just get out of that mode of like, I don't want to respond. Now, on the flip side, if you're very new to dieting or you haven't dieted in a while, your metabolism probably isn't as suppressed. And in that case, you might only need a few weeks, right? Like I said, it's all going to depend on how you're responding to. But you also want to remember you need to lock in some good routines, right? You have to have those basics down. You have to have those healthy habits before you can even get into a fat loss phase. So that might take a little bit longer. Your metabolism might be like, hey, I need it like 4 weeks. But the way you are with your habits, that might drag it out a little bit longer. You want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row before you dive in. The next thing is, besides your personal history, is what your current diet is like, and where's your overall health right now. Because if you're coming off a long phase of under eating, like if you went through a diet or you went into a competition and you're coming out of that, you think it's necessary to dive into another one? Like, your body is in a bit of a fragile state here, so it needs time. And you're probably thinking a little bit closer to, that 2 to 4 months of eating or working your way back up into a maintenance and eating there for a little bit and focusing on those nutrient-rich foods just to get your body optimized again. If you've been overeating, right, but otherwise kind of healthy, once again, you might just need a few weeks to clean things up, which is great. That's fine. But once again, the habits come into play, right? So you could be eating perfectly at a ton of calories. You've been at maintenance, but your habits are shit. So it's all going to be dependent on the individual. These are the little scenarios I'm trying to give you. A lot of people think when they think of dieting, it's all about like the calories you're eating. And listen, that is true in terms of like what you want to do with the scale weight and body fat composition, but it's also about how you feel. That's why during a primer phase, it's smart to always keep an eye on your own biofeedback. I do this with my clients. I take care of this. I monitor it based off of surveys that they fill out on a week-to-week basis with their check-ins. But you could do it with yourself. Are you sleeping well? How's your energy throughout the day? Are your workouts getting easier? Does it feel like you're fucking dragging ass to get to the gym? Are you feeling less stressed? Are you feeling more stressed? What about your digestion? Are you starving throughout the day, or is it normalizing? These are all signs that your body can be getting back to a healthier place once you start realizing like what's really going on. So let's just say you're in a primer phase and you've been in it for, 4 weeks, and you're noticing, more consistent energy, less random hunger swings. You're stronger in the gym. Your weight is steady. Maybe it's even dropping a little bit. And your sleep is phenomenal. That is pretty much a green light to me to start considering transitioning into a fat loss phase. But if not, it's okay. It's always good to stay in a primer phase longer than needed. Like I would rather you stay in a primer phase a little bit longer than you needed to rather than less, if that makes sense. Okay. So we talked about, your dieting history, then what your current state is like now. But then you also got to understand that like there's also like checking in with yourself and adjusting as you go. So once again, don't be afraid to extend the primer phase. If you feel like you need some progress, or if you feel like it's not where you want to be, that's okay. Even if it takes a little bit more time, there is zero harm in spending extra time in the primer phase. It's only going to make your dieting phase easier and more effective. The only caution is don't get stuck in it forever, right? Don't try to chase perfection here. Remember, it wasn't about chasing perfection. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about building a foundation, right? At some point, you'll feel that itch, that your habits are set, that you're feeling energized and your metabolism, it's back online, and you'll be able to know that it's time to move forward, right? You have to pay attention to your biofeedback. Your biofeedback will let you know, because there is no magic number of when you can start or when you have to start and stop, right? It's all about how you feel and making sure that you're firing on all cylinders, right? When you're sleeping well, you're training well, you're eating well, and you're not feeling mentally drained, that is a good point in time to be like, hey, I think I could go into this, right? I'm primed for a diet phase. So if you take away one idea from today, let it be this. Prepping your body before dieting isn't a waste of time. It's going to be your secret weapon. It takes longer upfront, but makes your efforts exponentially more effective and sustainable. It's literally prepare first and progress later. So if you're going to take one thing away, spend some time in a prime phase before you go into your next dieting phase. Make sure your body is ready, so when you do make those calorie cuts and you go into that fat loss phase, your body responds optimally, meaning you get the biggest, best response from your body because your body is primed for it. All right. hopefully they gave you some insight, and we all start a priming phase before our next dieting phase. Next week, we will have Dr. Aaron back on. But until then, we'll see you all next week. So on behalf of Balanced Bodies, we just want to say thank you for joining us on this episode of the Balanced Bodies Blueprint.
We are committed to bringing valuable content. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd greatly appreciate it if you can take a moment and like it and leave a 5-star review.
On Apple, just go to the show, scroll down to the bottom and rate it there. If you're on Spotify, go to the show's page, click the 3 dots, and you can rate it there as well.
And if you believe in the power of knowledge, share this episode on your social media to try and get the information out there to as many people as possible.
And as you navigate your own path towards better health, remember that Balanced Bodies is forever in your corner. See you all next week.
The podcast content may include discussions of medical topics and health-related information. However, the information provided should not be considered exhaustive or complete, and it should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare providers with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment.